podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Cardiff Central podcast, where for the first time it's United Rugby Championship quarter-final week for Cardiff. We'll be looking ahead to a return game against the Stormers, where the Blue and Blacks can get at the South Africans and select our 23, plus another Cardiff legend retires, and there's some senior management movement at last. Joining me on the panel this week, we've got Simon Jones. Simon, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm wearing my Amlin Challenge Cup Champions t-shirt as it's the anniversary. Was it last week? I think it was last week. That's all.
I think it might be Saturday. Yeah.
Melting in the heat.
Bring the luck of the knockout wins.
Yep.
We've also got Harley Worthy. Harley, how are you?
I am bloody roasting and just about recovered from a weekend with the kids at Butlins.
The sweet release of the Cardiff Central podcast to help you get over it. And we've got Tony Esposdi. Tony, how are you?
I'm sunburnt, but I'm obviously devastated by the two European Cup final results on the weekend. What an awful, awful set of results.
I know. I can't believe both French teams managed to concede 19 points. It was just shocking form from them.
Such a shame.
Obviously, as USC people, we have maximum solidarity with our Irish. No, we don't know. We enjoyed quite a lot of that action. Right. Obviously, it's mostly a Stormers preview pod this week with no Cardiff game last weekend in between our laughing at the results of those finals. But we will start with just a little bit of news. The club did their official awards night last week on Tuesday evening down at Tiger Yard in the Bay. The winners were Academy Player of the Year, Oshan Darwin-Lewis, then a run for Tom Bowen, who won Breakthrough Player of the Year, Try of the Season for his score against the Stormers, and Fans Player of the Year. Dan Thomas was the Players Player of the Year, and Ben Thomas won the Peter Thomas Player of the Year award, which voted for by the coaches. There was also a special recognition award handed out for Lee Halfpenny. Obviously, they say they're the official club awards, but until the Cardiff Central Podcast Awards are handed out, no one's really a winner yet, are they? Elsewhere, Wales Online have reported that the hunt for a permanent Cardiff Rugby chief executive is underway. No one has been filling that role officially since Richard Holland quietly departed on gardening leave after the club went into administration last year. Jamie Muir has obviously been doing the job as interim managing director up until this point, and it remains to be seen whether he's going to throw his hat into the ring or not. But I think from an outside perspective, he's done a pretty decent job so far. But we'll wait and see. Obviously, be good if the club do attract some decent caliber individuals there and see a project that could drive us forward over the next few years. What that project is, though, the WRU still won't tell us, so maybe that'll help get that underway. From the club, season ticket early bird window expires on the 31st of May. So if you haven't renewed or if not signed up yet, then do get onto that. It's before the prices go up. And I think if you've got a seat at the Arms Park, you have until that point to secure your seat for next season as well. And then finally, joining Lee Halfpenny in the retirement stakes, Lloyd Williams has announced he'll retire from rugby this summer. He played 261 times for Cardiff, the most appearances in that post-2003 era, a 2018 Challenge Cup winner. He also won 32 Wales caps, incorporating 2 Rugby World Cups, a Grand Slam, and 2 further Six Nations titles. Simon, Lloyd, he's obviously a Cardiff legend because of the appearance totals and the performances over the years. Maybe he's still a bit underrated, perhaps, in Welsh rugby. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was one of those funny careers where there always seemed to be someone just in front of him for quite a long time, and then sort of towards the end of his time, he really kind of started to own that position a bit more. I mean, he'll always be remembered for that World Cup. Lloyd Williams on the wing, chip, and rightly so. But yeah, I think a great servant for the club, and best of luck in his retirement.
Ali, I think he served for quite a long time in recent years as backup to Thomas, but in those early days he was like a genuinely good scrum half. The sniping and his work around the breakdown, he was like at a test level 9 for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you say he was a good. I mean, in the past, as if it was past tense, but even when he was the backup to Thomas, he was. It was great knowing that you had 2 reliable 9s to the point of even when both our 10s went off against Connacht and can't remember. I think it was like the 2020-21 season or the one after. and Lloyd steps up at 10, and we end up 60 minutes at 10, absolutely humiliates a full strength Connacht side at the Arms Park, and it's still that's probably my favourite memory of him outside of the World Cup. But he was just fantastic, and it was almost he was the perfect 1-2 punch for me between him and Thomas, because although they could both do all aspects of the game, the stuff that people were preparing for and expecting with Thomas, and flashy plays out the door passes and all that, and then Lloyd Williams just pure, just absolute solid consistency. And I just love, and him coming on just sort of flipped the game sometimes. And, and you could just see some teams would just sort of take a step back, and we'd either pull away, or we'd, snatch jaws from defeat, providing that our pack wasn't completely mullered at that point. Because, that was definitely much the case during those days. But yeah, I always loved watching him. So I always like the fact that he was always around as well. When Thomas was going off to Wales camp, you always had Lloyd Williams there back, when we actually were playing lots of games during these international windows, as opposed to the one or two now.
Tony, I think the experience that he had later in his career as well, you see a lot of the game management stuff that Thomas produces, and you even see Ellis Bevan going up to watch him play one of his last games. There's a lasting impact of him at Cardiff there.
Certainly, we've strived for that 1-2 punch like Harley was talking about since he's gone, and I think we're sort of getting to that position with Ellis Bevan. He's certainly in more of a mold of Lloyd Williams in more recent years than he would have been when he first broke onto the stage. So maybe he's taken that learning, and maybe he comes and does a bit of coaching. We do like to bring ex-players in and bring them through.
Yeah, I think he'd certainly do well. Obviously, his brother went into a bit of coaching as well, Tom, and Brimore. Obviously, there's rugby in the family there. It's fair to say. But yeah, Lloyd will retire. I think it's this weekend the championship final is. After what was a bonkers game for Worcester away at Ealing. If anyone saw the last couple of minutes of that, where Ealing thought they'd won it, Worcester somehow nick the kickoff back and go and score on the right wing to end Ealing's perfect season and set up a final. There's a bit of Cardiff interest on both sides there, because it's Lloyd Williams' Worcester against Mike Ray's Bedford, I think, in the championship final. So that'll be a good game on wherever that's being shown, if you can find that. But yeah, Lloyd, certainly a fantastic player for us over the years. Just mainly the ability to box kick off both feet. Yeah. Just really helpful a lot of times. But yeah, he is definitely goes down as a Cardiff legend, and hopefully you'll be back at the Arms Park plenty, even if it's not in any official capacity. We'll get to congratulate him on an excellent career. Right, moving into the big event this weekend then. Stormers v Cardiff, 2:30 on Saturday. It's going to be live on Premier Sports and S4C. If you haven't managed to remortgage your house and get out to South Africa in time, the club are doing a fan zone at the Arms Park, which looks like it'll be a good afternoon. Weather's holding, I think, up until Saturday. Then they'll also be showing the Champions League final, and there's another quarter-final later in the evening, I think, on the big screen. So get down to the Arms Park if you haven't made it out to South Africa for that one. Head-to-head wise, it's played 5, won 3, lost 2 for Cardiff, but all of our wins coming at the Arms Park, all of the defeats coming down in Cape Town so far. Most recent one last season, where on the last day of the season we did manage to score 4 tries down there, but didn't quite get the points needed to get into the playoffs on that occasion. Stormers ended up finishing 3rd in the URC this season. This will be their 5th quarterfinal. They've appeared in all of the postseason games so far since the URC became a thing. They've lost their last 2 to Glasgow. Before that, they beat the Bulls and finished runner-up, and then beat Edinburgh to go on to win the very first edition of the competition. They got a bit of team news. Their experience centre, Ruan Nell, is going to be back for this one. I think he may or may not be their captain. I'm not sure. But fortunately, the Haram of Springboks that they've signed for next season in Khaleesi and Wilco Lowe and Cheslin Colby won't be available for this one. We'll have to deal with that next year instead. But that is where we are going into this one. Simon, just before we look fully ahead to Saturday's game, I haven't quite finished speaking about the last game against Stormers the other week yet. You haven't been on the podcast since. What did you make of that game, that home win over them?
Yeah, let's just spend 45 minutes talking about that again and just will it into being. I'm still aching from just watching how physical that. I don't think I've seen a game that physical for a long time. But just incredible that we managed to do it against a very strong Stormers side as well, and managed to frustrate them to the point where they seemingly ran out of ideas quite quickly. And I think them taking the penalty at the end shows that they just did not want to stay on the pitch at all. They just wanted to try and get off it as quickly as possible. Because I just think, again, I've never seen a side get penalised at every single scrum, yet still physically match up across the pitch. I think they probably had, of their scrums, probably 2 scrums that didn't result in a penalty or less. So I think we did incredibly well to recover from, a pretty torrid start, to have no, we did really well on our scrum. I think there were points where it looked like Basham was like catching the ball on his chest. It was kind of hooked so quickly back to him. And I was thinking that, there might be points in the game this weekend where Winnett needs to be thinking about catching the ball because it might be hooked back even quicker and fly out the back of the scrum. So just all round. And it was one of those games where everybody put their hand up and did exactly what they were meant to do. And the discipline, not just discipline in terms of not conceding penalties, but to stay in position, make tackles, get around the park. So yeah, I think a really fitting end to the season in terms of a season of growth, where we've seen some real momentum. And to do that, those criticisms of, you have all your home games before Christmas and you've got a really easy run in. We put away the Scarlets, the Ospreys, and Stormers in the 3 of the last 4. I think that just shows where we're at. So whatever happens this weekend coming, I think we can all dine out on that performance until September.
Well, nice segue into my first question about this weekend, Harley. I suppose I wrote it down as, does this game go any way to define in the season, or is it a full-on free hit? And I think, obviously, if we win it, it'd be great, because that will be a season-defining one where we fly into the semi-finals. But I suppose the question is a bit more, if we were to get walloped on Saturday, like touchwood we won't, but if that did happen, does that sort of take anything away from the season that we've had in reaching the playoffs?
Over, I think it would depend. Like if it's a case of, we find out we've had loads of injuries and we're sending basically the sort of team we normally send to South Africa, and it's more like, the first time we went there in the first season where we got absolutely pumped 43, then you could probably forgive it. But I think if we're full strength and we get walloped, then there is a little bit of well, did we just forget everything, all the hard work we've done this season? But I mean, ultimately, I feel like, Tony said it last week. Last week, it was, this is a free hit. Whatever we do from over here. But I think if the performance is bad, it takes the sheen off. But I don't think that'll happen. As cocky as that sounds, I don't see this Stormer side, with how poor their attack is, walloping anyone. I'm not saying they can't beat anyone. I just don't think they're going to do it by, going full Bordeaux Bègles and smashing people. And last time we were out there, it was a 10-point difference. And once again, Sasha Zulu had to take a cowardly penalty to try and deny us a bonus point in that instance, in the death.
Cowards.
Bloody coward! Should have tapped and went. The Foley Belcher gambit. It said, for me, I genuinely do think it's in our hands. We should be going out there and giving absolutely everything, because odds are we won't have a game the following week. If we do, great. But this is a chance to just sort of show the best of what we've done all season. Let's be absolutely monstrous in defence. Let's show some of that nice attack that we seem to have picked up in the last couple of rounds. And let's just give everyone a chance. For all the people who spent £1,000 to £2,000 worth to head out to Cape Town, to have some cooler weather. Which, to be fair, I'm starting to think actually I would quite happily pay £2,000 to be in only 18 degrees. as I'm sitting here and having having my lunch in my car and the car's reading 40. I'm not having a good time.
No, I think there'll be a few Cardiff fans out there, but I did also see that I think there's a bunch of lads from Treorchy RFC who happen to be there on tour, which is an unbelievable coincidence. But there's going to be I think they said possibly up to 40 of them in hospitality at the Cape Town Stadium on Saturday. I don't know if the Cape Town Stadium has
will
ever
know what
hosted
hit 'em.
40 Treorchy lads in hospitality before, but they should stock up on beer, I think, for them
It
to arrive.
it was bad enough when my mum and her partner Hugh ended up in hospitality, I think. So because there were some other Cardiff fans in there, that was probably a bit of an eye opener. But yeah, 40 Drew hockey lads. On Harley's point, I was just looking through our results. I would say 3 times this year we've been blown out, and that was Exeter where we sent a relatively rubbish team down, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
It was
Much
the
changed, I
Bull.
think, is the official term.
We
It
started
was
Sam Wainwright, is what you want to say there.
it was the Bulls away, which I just remember there were some ridiculous bounces of the ball in that game, and then there was Glasgow the other week. But even in my head, that didn't feel like they completely blew us out. I just don't think this Van Ziel team gets blown out. They keep games close, and if you can frustrate, as Harley kept saying, if you can frustrate them, as in they're attacking that great statistically. So if we can frustrate them, then do they start forcing stuff like they did the other week? And that's where our opportunities come in. So
I think as well, I get the impression from things I've read, it feels like they're looking beyond this game.
hmm,
They're already looking at there was
yeah.
there was something on that I picked up around, what is the route to a Stormers versus Bulls final? And it was almost like, well, they're both going to win their games this weekend. So what happens then, in terms of Leinster and Glasgow, really? So if it's possible for them to be complacent, I think probably us beating them so comfortably, because it felt more comfortable than a 7-point win. And I think that was one of the things at the end of the game. It was just kind of like the game ended. And there wasn't this big outpouring that we've seen at the end of some of our games where it's been really emotional, like the Sale game or the Hull semi-final, our semi-final. It was just like the whistle went and everyone went, "Oh yeah, we've won. That's great." I should have said the crowd were incredible.
Dan, I'll tell you, I wasn't like that. Basically,
Yeah,
for the last 15 minutes, I was just going, "It's 2 scores. I've seen this stuff like this so much before."
and I think it comes back to the fact that we weren't kicking our goals. Ospreys, and I feel like I'm obsessed with this now. Ospreys and Scarlets, we converted our tries and it was more comfortable, but it felt relatively comfortable. So I don't think they'll take us lightly, but I think their eyes are beyond this game and their supporters' eyes are beyond this game. They'll go through the motions of it being professional, but obviously.
I am very much hoping for Munster Glasgow last year's situation where at Thomond Park they were already advertising the final before kickoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that some of the press stuff that John Dobson, the Stormers head coach, has done in the last day or two, and for him, I think he's saying the right things, that they're not underestimating Cardiff, and Cardiff are a very good team and deserve to be here. But certainly, you felt that the questioning that was coming to him and the noise from like the media and maybe the supporters around the Stormers was very much like, "Oh, they beat us because it was a plastic pitch." Seems to be quite a theme down there. Like, we're coming back on grass in Cape Town, so we should do them quite easily. And John Dobson was sort of very much like, "Well, hang on here a second. Like, they're going to be very good still. They're going to come here with nothing like not riding on it, but no pressure on them as such, and they're going to come and cause us a lot of problems, and we have to be better." And I also noticed so Scrum 5 did a podcast from inside the Elms Park last week and spoke to Josh McNally and Dan Thomas, and Josh McNally was talking about how they've been training up at the Vale to get on the grass pitches up there, so we're doing everything we can to be ready for it. Certainly there's been no excuses from them on that front. Tony, just picking up a bit on what Simon said there about kicking goals and stuff. Obviously, knockout rugby is something that we haven't experienced a huge amount of over the last few years. I suppose, do we go there on Saturday with a slight change in mentality around taking points when they're on offer and just winning by any means necessary, or do we stick to how we've been all season and and get over the line playing our way. If we go down, then at least we've sort of stuck to who we are as a team.
There's a saying that I'm gonna butcher, but it's something along the lines of you dance with the girl you took, and basically you do what got you there. I think we're going to be incredibly physical. I don't think the physicality is going to be much different than it was a couple of weeks ago. And I think the only way for us to fight that is to do what we've been able to do best for the last couple of years, which is attack their breakdown. We've got 4 people in the top 15 of turnover stats in URC. So we attack the breakdown and we play off that disruptive ball, and we try and put ourselves in the right position through Ben Thomas and Johan Mulder, and we let Johan Mulder absolutely muller their props. And we go from there. I think you can't change what's got you here, because that's where the confidence comes from.
I generally thought the quote you were going to come up with was "He who dares rodders."
No, well, that would also work, and I wish that had come to my head. Can we retake this? And I just answer the question.
Let's go again.
You dares rodders.
Just photoshopped Delboy's face onto your bit on YouTube.
Well, is that the pod title now?
There might be a trademark issue there. I'm not sure. Simon, obviously the Stormers have had a good look at us there now, and both sides have had 2 weeks to review the game, but I think Stormers probably need to do a bit more deep dive in than we have to do. Is there anything we'd expect differently to come from them? Is there somewhere where they might think, oh, they can just go at us much harder? Obviously, they can't go at the scrum much harder than they already did. I'm absolutely mullering that. But is there something we should expect from them, do you think, this weekend to try and change up the result?
I think they probably can go at the scrum harder. Being a South African side, you can never not go at the scrum harder. I was really surprised they didn't seem to get to the 13 channel very often. From memory, I think they'll probably feel disappointed that they didn't kind of get much width on their game. I think their fans and supporters like to feel that they are a kind of fast and loose attacking side out wide, and they seem to get bogged down a bit in midfield. And I think that's because physically they weren't necessarily getting over the gain line consistently. They were being stopped there. They weren't getting quick ball off the back of it. And even when we were scrambling well. And so, I would have thought they would have looked at that and thought, well, actually, if there was a weakness in that Cardiff side, you would have thought you're playing an inside centre at outside centre. The pace maybe wouldn't quite be there. The fact that Ben Thomas turned the tables and, made the break for the assist for Bowen's try, really showed that he can play at 13. But you would have thought, actually, if there's one area they're going to target, it's probably getting that ball away quicker and going through there. I don't think they're maul. South African sides always like show up well in the maul. I don't really remember it being kind of like, oh, we're really struggling here. So one thing we did really well was get jumpers up. So even if they got kind of clean ball, or there was a couple of times I think where the ball wasn't straight because we challenged for it. So I think they'll want to tidy all that up, and I think be as physical as they were, but not kind of get drawn into that side of their game, which I think they did. They were like, oh, we've got to batter the door down. This side will wilt, and then the space will open up and we'll walk in some tries. But I think some of it was just attitudinal. I think they scored so early, got a yellow card, didn't really celebrate the score. It was like, right, back we go, we'll start again. And the longer we held out against them, the more frustrated they got, the more reckless they were at some of the breakdowns with their clear outs or their tackling. When the yellow card eventually came, you felt that could have been coming like 10, 20 minutes before it did, because they were just flying into things. So I think, they'll look at their discipline, they'll look at their recycling, but if we can frustrate them for periods, it's not like we're going to go there and it's going to be a massively hostile crowd. I think they've got a really good average gate this season, but they're averaging about 26,000 in quite a big stadium. It's not going to be kind of a Tormund Park type.
If anything, that crowd, based off what we were saying earlier around the around their expectations. If we can keep it close and start to punish their mistakes and things like that, and we can get that crowd to turn on him, then 26,000 can still be relatively loud even
Yeah,
in a massive stadium like that. And
yeah.
if
So I
they're
think
on their backs and not ours, then that's a benefit for us.
yeah. So I think that's what they'll look at, and it's up to us to, as I said earlier, it's about discipline, not only not giving away penalties, because you don't want to, give them free entries. And where we have been beaten heavily this season, we have given teams free entries, both Glasgow and the Bulls, who are conceding penalties, and then they around halfway. So we need to keep that discipline up, but also discipline of knowing where you're meant to be in the defensive line, making your tackles as well. So yeah, I think we can do it, but I think we'll see a different side. I think they'll look at the tape and realise they were poor as well. I mean, we made them poor, but they were certainly, they lost their heads a little bit. I think lost their way.
Yeah, and we spoke before the last game about Feinberg and Gomezulu, and I thought he had a particularly poor game on the night, but ultimately he's a big game player and he's a Springbok, and you can expect him to go up a couple of levels, I suspect, on the weekend as well. But it'd be interesting to see whether. If I was a Stormers fan, I would agree. I'd be crying out for them to get the ball wide and actually play a bit, and ask Feinberg and Gomezulu to do some link-up play with the guys outside him. But it also wouldn't surprise me necessarily as a South African team if they sort of went, right, they dealt with our physicality and directness there. We're going to do that more. We're going to be more physical and more
Yeah.
direct, and just try and absolutely batter them on our own pitch. And I like not to ward them off that, but I think that'd be great for Cardiff, because I think in a big game like that we can get up, the same as when we've played the big French sides that have come to us over the last few years. Like, we can deal with that sort of thing as a one-off game if we're in the right headspace. So fingers crossed they go that, because I do think if they
The
start
running
going
around
wide,
we don't like.
yeah, if they start going wide and link up play, then it could get away from us a little bit at times.
And there's yellow and red cards in that type of game as
Yeah.
well, because the frustration, it saps their energy as much as it saps ours, and that's when you get, you misjudge your tackle, or how you're tackling and stuff like that. I thought that it was, I mean, it was brutal in the best sense of the word in terms of the physical, but there were some shots going in that I was like, hang on.
I mean,
I'm
I'm gonna say
not
something
quite
that
sure you
is
can
going to
keep
get us in.
doing that.
So I do have a take here, which is going to get us in trouble with South African Twitter.
Oh,
Thankfully,
no.
I'm not on it, so I don't have to see it. But Sasha, as brilliant a player as he is, when things aren't going his way, he does start becoming a petulant child, and you see him
Fordy
doing
said this
deliberate
the other
knock.
week, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, he does do knockdowns. He's prone to doing quite a few high tackles and slapping down, and he gets away with it almost off the back of his talent. Much like some like the great All Blacks have always, and Rich McGaw always managed to get away with more because of who they were. And I do think that with Ruan now coming, that will help a little bit with the solidity in midfield, which might free him to wander around and come out. But one thing, so Hughes, been watching Stormers quite a lot and doing various pieces on him. So one of my lights about to go out. He's been looking at, and basically, if Sasha Feinberg Zulu and Damon Willemse can't link up effectively, if you can disrupt that link up, he doesn't have an outlet for his talent, and the rest of the back line just can't seem to keep up with him. So, if we can keep them quiet again, one or the other of those quiet again, I think that'll be a good way to keep him the wide game out, and then it's just for the big physical boys to do their big physical boy things, led as ever by Johan Mulder, usually the smallest on the pitch.
There's something about our scrum as well. I noticed a few times that the Stormers were so fired up about winning a penalty when we had the ball that they were really slow to get up off the scrum, because they were just all heads down driving, but the ball had already gone, and Basham, because of his he's quick, was past the scrum. So I think I know we're going to come on and talk about that, what we can do about the scrum, but I think they'll be looking at those type of things. There was a couple of times where you kind of I think they will scrummage us off the park. They will scrummage for yellow cards early on. They will try to get the man advantage or two-man advantage, and I think that will be their tactic. I think they will try to just hammer us and hope that we keep infringing like we were in the first, even after Belcher's yellow card. The referee did talk to Ben Thomas to say, that's 3 scrums. Javan Sebastian stood up 3 times. And then for some reason, the referee shouted, use it, at the next scrum that was going like sideways and upwards. And they scored off the back of it. But it was a bit like, if that ball doesn't see light of day, I think we're down to 13 men there.
I think as Tony pointed out last week, like too many people are keen to try and get a penalty for a scrum just going backwards or like that. And normally when you see the pack going up like that, it's usually use it or I'm going to reset it because frankly both of you are doing something wrong.
Yeah, that is one of my biggest bugbears. Look, I have a couple of big bugbears in modern rugby. One is just because your scrum is stronger and we're going backwards doesn't mean we're doing anything illegal. And you see teams penalised for it all the time, but in reality, if that scrum is staying up and you're just going backwards, it can go the length of the pitch.
And at
some point, someone's gonna fall over, and then it's a penalty. But if you're just going backwards, it's not a penalty. My other big bugbear is people deliberately knocking the ball down instead of catching it, because I think that should be a deliberate knock on if you knock it forwards.
To be fair, I think our back row were in the Westgate Weatherspoons at one point in the first half, pushing it in the queue. So
I mean, Basham was picking the ball up from underneath the front row.
On that point then, Harley, is there anything we can do about the scrum? Is there anything any tactical things we can deploy? Can we tell the ref it's not as bad as he thinks?
You're asking someone who is a very ineffective back rower at occasional second row in scrums, which when I am in the second row, I have before now ended up on back-to-back with my second row partner. I'm probably not the guy who said, unless you can get him heavily beefed up on special chickens to try and counteract some of the power coming through. I mean, McNally coming back, that will help. He's been quite a good cause so for our scrimmaging pack. I don't think he's necessarily bigger or heavier than the other two, but he just seems to be able to put the power in. That should help sort of straighten it out a little bit. If Teddy's fit, again, he's another one who I think is probably one of the strongest scrummaging locks. Thornton, is a fantastic line-out operator, but I feel like sometimes I don't know what it is, but I feel like he doesn't seem to get his weight transferred into the scrum as efficiently. And so I'm no scrummaging expert, so don't hate me on that one. But yeah, so maybe that might shore it up a little bit. Other than that, I feel like it was our best props, our best hookers for the job near enough doing it. So I think the best we can do is hope that, Basham going to the Talupi Falto school of having to get the ball out from the back of a retreating dragon scrum will see us through.
The only other thing I was thinking of was you can buy wheel chocks from Amazon for about 13 quid a pair. So I think that would be a wise investment.
The only other one I thought was that we rope-a-dope them a few times. There was one, they were so powerful on the hit. Do you let them walk through the mark?
Yeah.
Because we did it in the first half and got a free kick. Scarlets have done it to us a couple of times when we've been up a couple of players, is just not take the hit. But not take it in a really obvious way of just kind of going, collapsing. But, there's ways of doing it that if they're a dominant scrum, the referee's expecting them to go forward. We've just got to be seen to take the hit. And if they keep driving forward, just let them drive. If the ball's not in, let them go through, and see if that way we can get a few free kicks from them. But I agree, I don't think there's anything we can do. Not knock on. No mistakes. Absolutely faultless game.
I had something similar about the free kick. So I think that conversation that they have with the referee on the Thursday will be hugely important in terms of getting across that, like, there will be times where they will come through the mark and it'll be because they're pushing too much and it's nothing to do with us. And then also I think really stressing that point that we're expecting to go backwards on their put-in, so we're just going to stay square, and if we go backwards then we go backwards, and hopefully the referee is like, fine, that's fine, we'll just get the ball out at that point, because maybe if they go backwards too quickly the 8 won't be able to control the ball and the ball will just spit out the back anyway. And I go for that. My only other one was that we named a bench of just all props and just constantly rotated the props so it was a different person every time and I couldn't yellow card them.
Has anyone worked out what Owen Cross's favourite biscuits are to take to that meeting on Thursday?
They're just a pile of them in his hotel room in South Africa when he gets there, courtesy of Cardiff Rugby.
That and Tato's crisps.
Tony, on to focusing on us then. I suppose when Cardiff do look at that tape and expect Stormers to come back at them, where could Cardiff improve to maybe get at the Stormers a bit more? Because I think, yeah, like Simon said earlier, I think we all agree that it should have been more comfortable, actually, that win in that first game. So how can we make that so?
I think that's more execution than it is anything. So it's doing the same things, but better.
Like more consistently every time.
Yeah. We're in a quarter-final now. Everything needs to go up that percentage if we were here. So we just need to be here because the Stormers are going to go up as well. Because like you said earlier, big game players, right? So we need to go up and match that. And if we can, and we continue to play in the same sort of way, we allow Thomas to get free on those pullbacks and let someone like Bowen or Beetham free and running at them, then these conditions that they're going to have out there, it should suit the sort of rugby that we want to play. If it's nice on grass, we've beaten teams on grass this year, regardless of what the Stormers fans think. We can, we just play rugby, man. Just play as we've played.
That's the thing. You don't want to go out without firing a shot, do you?
Yeah.
Back to your point, Tony, about taking what's got us this far is an almost allergic approach to penalty kicking for the posts. Although I do think if there's simple 3 points on and it's tight, you kind of take it, because I think part of that getting them frustrated is them not being able to get away from us, not being able to build a big lead where they can then go and throw the ball around and it doesn't really matter. But I thought what was really impressive was seeing the way Ben Thomas and Lloyd played. Like Thomas was filling in at 10 a lot more than you would see because Sheedy doesn't kind of move around that much. So you saw Thomas in at 10 and being able to pull back to Lloyd and things like that. So there was quite a bit of variety that they wouldn't have expected from us, because they would have put their game plan with Sheedy at 10, not Yo and Lloyd, I would have thought. So you just want to go out on your shield and swinging, really, if we go out. I think it's going to be hard, but you just want us to fire some shots out there. And we've scored some fantastic tries this season as well. That try of the season competition reminded me of how great some of the scores we have delivered. Really sad that Javan Sebastian's second try against the Scarlets wasn't included either.
I think so, sort of echo what Simon and Tony said. I think what we need to do is every time we're in that 22, we've got to come away with something.
Yeah.
I think that's been our biggest killer in the games we've lost, is that we've not always converted, whether it's because we've been hammering at the door with 5 meter moves, but without actually putting any deception in it and expecting Belcher to sort of power over, even though he did manage it once, which I think it must have just confused them, because they thought, oh, they're not going to do this now. They're going to do some sort of move, surely, because this doesn't work. Cue the
Do you reckon that means that we attempt drop goals a bit, just to keep? If we can't get in after 3 phases, stick Thomas or whoever it is at 10 in the pocket and just go.
This is knockout rugby. You don't get bonus points for tries scored. It's about having more points at the end of the game. So I think, you do whatever you can to keep that scoreboard ticking. Like if you can get a couple of quick tries to establish a lead, great, and then start chipping away. Obviously,
because you can sort of tell. Oh, sorry, Alan, go on.
Yeah, but I was saying, you do have a point about saying, we got to keep to what kept us on. It kept us, made us in those games. But some of that, what kept us in those games, actually, we've probably taken more penalties this season than I remember us in quite a few. And and it's playing, and it's making the smart play.
Yeah,
it isn't just trying to score a million tries in the first 10 minutes. We are being a bit more considered and measured and balanced with the approach. I think that is how we play it. That's how you win knockout rugby. And I think that is the biggest thing Van Zale's brought to us this season. Sorry, Tim, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say is like when you're attacking in that 5-10 meter line, you sort of know, right? And you you know yourself, like you sort of know whether you're going to chink through whatever they've got or whether they're properly structured, and you're just basically rolling it through for a pen. So at that point, just drop someone and see whether you can pick it up. Like you're right, it's about keeping that scoreboard moving and not coming away from the 22 empty-handed.
But
However, if they do go for the drop goal on penalty advantage, they should voluntarily yellow card themselves because that is a sin penalty. If you've got the option of 3 already,
Cross
don't
kick.
take 3.
yeah,
What I want is a crossfield kick to Tom
Yeah.
Bowen.
I think what will be interesting, because we haven't played that much knockout rugby and this coaching team haven't played that much knockout rugby, is that momentum and context of the game is so crucial. There's times to kind of kick for the corner because you feel that the flow is going with you. There's other times when you're kind of like, okay, take the penalty, maybe drop into the pocket, take the drop goal because we need some points and we need some momentum. And that kind of game management, feel for the game, if we go again now, we can kind of break their confidence. But if you do the wrong thing, it flips the other way then. So, you go for a penalty from halfway to get within a score and it drops short or it drops wide. Suddenly the opposition they don't fancy this as much anymore. So there's going to be some real big decisions to be made in game, hopefully, because it will be close. That there's enough experience out there to make the right decisions, but in the heat of a game like this, that not many of them are kind of experienced at Cardiff anyway. It's going to be a real test for the group.
Yeah, I was going to ask us, did Sheedy and Lloyd, you and Lloyd play much knockout rugby when they were at Bristol?
Sheedy will have played a bit because they won the Challenge Cup in COVID year, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they've been in
They've been in Prem finals, but I don't know if it was with them or because obviously Bristol have had that issue with halfbacks for as long as I've been.
I think
supporting
Sheedy will have. I don't think Lloyd will have. Lloyd was relatively in and out of the team.
Certainly not as a 10 anyway. I think because
Yeah.
I don't think we ever really saw. I think his brother played more 10 at Bristol than he did.
Obviously, outside of that, the SRC has obviously prepared some of our academy lads for knockout rugby, which is the full intent, right? So,
yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Simon, just on the point of like we were saying about Lloyd coming in, and I don't think anybody was anticipating Sheedy not being available for that game, least of all Stormers. Do we have to have a look at deploying some sort of like curveball personnel wise or tactically again? Is that something we should have up our sleeve on the team sheet if there's just one surprising thing which they haven't prepped for, or do we just back the team that we've seen over the last few weeks?
And they're going to pick Ed Byrne. Ed Byrne is going to come back. Fraser will return to the pod and everything will be right with the world. I don't know whether the same trick works twice. With Johan Lloyd, and I mean he was phenomenal and got that back line ticking, but also just like wriggling out of tackles and making ground. There was one where he kind of arced back on himself and it was kind of like there's no way through there, and suddenly he somehow found his way through. So in terms of a kind of standout performance, it was absolutely that. I think what's really interesting, and we'll come on to selection, is you've got some real choices and some difficult decisions to make in terms of players coming back that haven't played a lot of rugby but are experienced or have served us as well, versus the team that went out there and did it. I think it'll be a different game. I think we matched them. We were at home. The crowd got into the opposition. They lost their heads a bit and we won it. I don't think it's going to be that game. And that's where I think, will they pick the more conservative option with Sheedy if he's fit? I don't know what his injury was in the end.
It was a hamstring injury. Well, I'll do the team use before the selection bit in a bit, but he's in my unknown section at the moment, so we don't know exactly.
Even at the end, Johan Lloyd was on one leg. Towards the end, he seemed to pull up with something, but I don't think we had anyone really to replace him, and they were kind of hiding him around the field. In that it was the final few minutes. So yeah, I mean, I'm just of the opinion that whatever we do, if we match them physically, if we can get away with the scrum, we've got a chance. And you've just got to pick a team that you've got to kind of think about yourself at this point, because we know what the Stormers are going to bring. So what is the best side we can put out on the pitch to win that game and be the best version of Cardiff rugby. And I think you go with that, because you can try and be too clever in these situations, and tactically too clever, and you end up losing the shape of what you're about. I think, we've all said it on this pod. This got, the way we've played has got, and this personnel have got us this far. Let's have a final shot at it, and as Tony said, go up 20%. That seems a lot. Maybe 10. Go up 50%, 50% better.
100%, be twice as good as last time.
Yeah.
On that point then, Harley, of team selection, we'll go position by position shortly, but just as a kind of overarching theme, there's a number of players like Teddy Williams, like Harry Millard I'd put into that category as well, potentially Mason Grady, who have been out for a little while now, or in the case of Teddy, a long while, and but could be fit for this weekend. They are obviously players who, when they're fully fit, are like undisputable in the team type of players. I think Harry Millard maybe goes into that list as well, or maybe I just said him, I can't remember. But they're players who form the spine of the team when everybody's fully fit. But is it a risk to bring them back in this weekend, having not had much rugby in the last few weeks, and also like potentially annoying some of the players who got us this far over the last few weeks as well?
I mean, yeah, of course it's a risk, but then it might be a risk to leave out someone with the talent of Teddy Williams and his ability both in the tight and in the loose. Yeah, and this is why, thankfully, none of us are being paid to make the decision. We can just say whatever we like on a podcast. All right, we none of us are getting paid, right? Don't you just give me a look? Should be really annoyed, seeing as I actually host another one of these podcasts.
Take it up with your agent, Harley.
What an awkward way to find out, Harley.
Yeah. I'm going to be having words with producer Lee. Yeah, I mean,
I
as
do not
for,
get
like
paid.
disgruntled. I mean, I feel like certainly Jockey before him, but Van Zyl gives the impression that every player sort of knows why they have and haven't been picked, and I feel like the sort of group of players we've got now understand that if so and so comes in over them, yes, I can see them being disappointed, but I imagine they just want to win just as much. And just because only 23 people get named in that squad, in the matchday squad, the whole playing squad win this or lose this together, because they're all training together, they're all trying to make each other better. I know it's a very wanky bollocks wokey thing to say, but I do genuinely believe the match day is 23 players plus, and then you're like, oh no, there's Tasman's reserves as well, plus his trainers and everyone is going on. So yeah, I mean, it's a risk, but we don't see these players day in day out. We don't know how hard Teddy's been working to get back. We don't know if he's tearing it up in training. We don't know if Mason's Grady little thumb was fixed after about 3 days and they're just giving him rest. I say little. I've seen his hands up close. They are massive. Like, his thumb's like the size of my hand. And we're going to, so it could be that they're ready, but it could be that they're not. And in which case, then I trust Van Zyl to make the right call and not select these players, because ultimately, whenever he seems to have made a decision, it seems to have been the best one. I can't think of many times where I think, oh, he's got selection wrong. Maybe some of the bench, maybe some of his bench and substitutions, but I say overall, for the most part, he's probably gone the right way, even if the game hasn't gone right.
I think it's one of those ones where after the time, if he picks all the players coming back and then we lose, they'd be like, well, we should have just stuck with the team that got us there. And then if he doesn't pick them and we lose, then well, why didn't we pick these players?
Yeah, what did we have to lose?
Yeah. But no, I agree that like Van Zyl has more than earned the trust, I think, of supporters this season to make the right call at this point. And I also thought the other thing from that Scrum 5 pod, which was interesting, was Dan Thomas was talking about sort of the performance against the Stormers at home and mentioned that they'd had a terrible week at training where the match day 23 had been totally outplayed by the non-23 players in the week leading up to it in training. And I wonder if that, you have a week like that where, yeah, you maybe feel like you haven't trained as well, but you've been properly tested day in, day out, and then it comes to the game on the Friday and it feels much easier as a result, rather than where you've just gone up against a bunch of no-hopers who aren't in the 23, and you think, oh, I'm a bloody world beater. You know, I've scored 400 tries in training this week, and then the other team actually wants to play against you on the weekend, and it's a bit more of a challenge.
That reminds me of Jared. You know, with I think it was when Wales were in their pomp of defensive thing, and they called Jared Evans to run the attack of the defence, and they were just like, "You kept cutting us open. We just couldn't fucking defend for life." And then they're pulling out world-beating defensive performances. It's like, yeah. So I think there's something from that.
I mean, there's no pressure on us at all. You know, on Saturday, all the pressure is on the Stormers. Nobody expects us to go there and do anything outside of the four of us on this pod and, you know, all the other Cardiff fans. But
I'll be furious if we lose.
Yeah,
furious.
Usually the ref.
Yeah. But I think the pressure is so much on them that we can go out there and just do what we do, be sensible, absorb everything they can throw at us. And I genuinely think we'll annoy them. If we don't kind of buckle, we'll annoy them to the point of they will overreach or try something or get frustrated. So what have we got to lose? We've got, you know, whoever goes out there has got nothing to lose, and it could be, you know, one to go down in history as one of the great ever Cardiff Rugby performances. As long as we don't get absolutely thumped, it'll still be if we do, it'll still be a good season. We qualified for the Champions Cup.
Good stuff. I was just having a look to see if they'd done the URC like predictor thing, and but they haven't yet. But I imagine there's going to be like at least 90% in favour of the Stormers, isn't it? Like not many people outside of the Cardiff Rugby bubble are picking us to win that one.
Tony's that 10%. Tony's the 10%.
Just clicking the button over.
I never vote on those things.
Mr. 10%.
It's just two votes. It's Cardiff to win, and whoever's playing against the Dragons also win. Right, at this point of the pod then, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, feel free to like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're on. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video and subscribe to the channel, and whatever platform you're on, give us a review as well, always helpful. Plenty of other stuff going out across the rap channels as the season comes to a close as well. We get to the business end of the campaign. The Interpro show, the Irish one, as we mentioned earlier, must be good listening this week. must be good.
I might listen to that one.
Especially after their triple, was it 2 or 3 episodes last week?
A lot of build up for a lot of losing. Right. Final part of the pod, then we'll get into our team selection for this weekend. As I mentioned, a bit of team news. So we know that Josh McNally is back after his playing for the RF over the last game, but he is going to be available. I think then the likes of Teddy Williams, Alex Mann, Harry Millard come under the hopeful category. We don't have any confirmation they're definitely back, but there was certainly, this was a game that was circled on a couple of calendars for them, so fingers crossed. We know that Talubi Faletau, Ali Davis, Theo Cabango are your more long-term guys, although the last game Theo Cabango was saying that he's very close to being back, and I suspect if the Rags were still going now, he'd be turning out for them to get some games under his belt, so that's promising for pre-season next year to have him back after what's been a very long and arduous 2 years of hamstring recovery for him. We think Ben Donnell's also out and won't play for us again at this point, and then we've got Sheedy in the unknown category with that hamstring injury. Obviously, if it's a low-grade one, then he could be back for this week. But if it was a bit more serious, then he's probably unlikely. And then Mason Grady was in some of the training pictures before the Stormers game last time out with still a fair bit of protection on that thumb. But obviously has been named in the Wales squad, so can't be far off being fit again if they think he's going to be playing Test match rugby this summer at some point. So
was out of his hand.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. Unless they've just chopped the thumb off, that was the easiest thing to do and sewn it back up, and he can come back and play.
Wouldn't impact his handling skills.
I left an open goal for you there. But yeah, so I think with Sheedy and Grady, we'll see about them when it comes to the outside back selection. But we'll do a couple of what if this player is fit and isn't fit with Teddy, Mann, and Millard as we got a bit of time. So. Simon, front row, obviously, this feels a bit more like which lambs are we sending to the slaughter here with our front row selection going up against the Stormers. But Which are the three that you would pick to go from the start?
It doesn't matter. Just get a massive tombola out and just pick three names. Even if pick another prop at hooker, who cares? I, I mean, the only question you'd have is about, well, not the only question. There's lots of questions, but as Sebastian got on the wrong side of the referee, not intentionally, just because he was picked out, would you do you start Azarati maybe at tight head to just kind of have something a little bit different and have Sebastian? I always think Sebastian seems better coming off the bench sometimes, so maybe start with that. I think they'll pick Belcher. I guess it depends whether we have back row cover, about whether where Lloyd is where what position he plays on the bench. I'd have him at hooker, but yeah, I think I'll go with Belcher, and then I think it's much of a muchness really. I think probably start with Barrett, with Southworth on the bench, and see how that goes, and change it after about 55 minutes, 50 minutes probably.
Seems
You
fair.
might be right around the Sebastian thing because Andrew Brace is one of the ARs. So if he's got it in his head from the last game that Sebastian and Southworth were causing problems, and he's on the touchline, then he's going to be in Cross's ear. So I would have picked Barrett, Defo, and then Belcher, and I think you're right with Azarati.
I'd probably pick those props just because I think they are the better two props, particularly for, and I feel like, I agree. I think both Southworth and Sebastian are better impact players. I'm hoping Van Zyl is sensible enough to have sort of sent a little bit of footage and said, "Can you clarify why you didn't like this picture?"
Yeah.
And are you happy with how the Stormers have done this thing? Yeah, this thing here. Watch out for that thing. And even if it is a nothingy thing, just again to start getting games into the breath, because all coaches do it before we start getting the South African conspiracy theorists in.
They're my people.
Second row then, Harley. I asked on social media for sort of listeners' selections for a couple of positions where there's maybe a bit of a decision to make. Lock, I thought, was one of them, and we had a few different answers. Gareth says he'd go with Thornton and Knott. Sean says he'd go with McNally and Thornton. And then you got Rob and Steve both got Teddy back in there. But McNally and Thornton was agreed with by most people. Charlie, Richard, and Nathan as well went with that. If we're saying Teddy is fit to start with, what would be your starting duo?
I think if Teddy's fit and he's training the house, that's it, because we don't know him training that. I think if he's showing anything like what he did at the start of the season, he's straight in. This is not disrespect to Knott and Thornton on their abilities, but I feel like Teddy's the best of both worlds of what those two players bring. His line-out work is exceptional. He's incredibly physical. His hands is something that Simon keeps mentioning we've been missing in our attack all season. The partnership and the ballast he provides with McNally in the second row seems to help our scrum, even when the props are flagging a bit or the pictures aren't quite right. It stops us at least from moving back and generating the bad pictures. And then you've got the option of if he's fit but maybe can only last 50 minutes, or even if he only lasts 20 minutes, you can bring a second row on to cover him, which is something we've been missing. And I'd be quite tempted to go with two, and then if use Knott as an emergency 6 if needed, as well as having a back row cover. Is how I'd go with that.
And if Teddy didn't make it, who would be your McNally partner then?
I would go Thornton in this case. Again, I feel like slightly better off the bench, and the work Thornton was doing at disrupting Storm's line out is going to be invaluable.
And claiming our own ball.
Yeah.
Something we're not always great at.
Yeah, I just accept that's going to be a lottery of whether we're good or not. And if we can disrupt the opposition ball, that I feel like is the leveler then.
I'm reading into Dan Thomas's comment about not training very well last week because the other 23 dominated them is because it was all Teddy. So I'm just pinning all my hopes on that. So
yeah, all fair points to make. Tony, I included back row in that social media post then because I thought that there is a potential thing. If Man is fit, does he come back in? And you've got Big Al obviously has been very good for the majority of the season up until sort of Basham's overtaken him slightly the last few weeks. But every single response just said stick with Botham, Thomas, and Basham. So I suppose the question from the listeners is: is there any reason to disagree with them?
No, I would stick with Botham, Thomas, and Basham. We seem to have found a really good balance. Botham does what Botham does. Dan Thomas seems to be wrestling more and more Ukrainians and getting stronger and stronger every week. And my only concern would be, has Basham recovered from the 4,322 carries he made the other week? So
Into brick walls, basically.
yeah. Do you know he didn't? So we were talking off on a tangent. We were talking about where that ranks compared to Xavier Rush's performance. Xavier Rush made 147 carries off 147 yards off 19 carries. I think Basham made like 45 off 20 odd.
Yeah.
He was literally running into a brick wall and then getting up and doing it again. It was ridiculous.
Is there anything just in terms of picking Lawrence at 8 to strengthen the scrum? I don't know their weight difference. I mean, Basham's more dynamic in terms of getting the ball away, probably. And I'd go with the same back row, but that was the only thought in my head was, would Lawrence give you any more stability at scrum?
I think Lawrence would be a better option if we don't have Teddy, maybe, because then we have another liner option at the back. But I'd still, I'd still want Basham, just because this is why we bought him, right?
Yeah, and it's about that difference in meters. I think Basham started all of his carries from about 15 meters further back than Rush did on that day. The Stormers defense was a lot quicker up in his face than the Wasps defense was on that semi-final day in 2010, certainly. But yeah, it's very difficult to argue with that incumbent back three after the last few weeks, certainly. And what would be great is if Mann was fit, then we could have some proper back row cover on the bench if we had full second row complements as well. And we'll come to the exact makeup of that in a minute. But
you can come on and cause absolute bastardry for the last 20 minutes.
And Alex Mann, who's been injured for a few weeks and then is left to sit on the bench just sort of frothing for 55 minutes. I
feel sorry for his family and whoever's had to put up with him while he's been injured because he's had no outlet for the bastardry.
He's definitely swapping the sugar and the salt.
Simon, I've put Mulder in at 9 because I think that's pretty set now. Fly half was another question I asked. If Sheedy and Lloyd are fit, obviously, if it turns out they're both unfit, then the curveball this time will be Harry Wild appearing at 10, presumably. But if we're going between Lloyd and Sheedy, there was some mixed answers on this one. We had Rob and Sean said Sheedy. Then we had Gareth. I've lost my notes here. There we are. Gareth, Charlie, Nathan all said Lloyd. So it's roughly 50-50 there. If they're both fit, who would you go with for this one?
I'd go with Sheedy. I think sometimes Cardiff fans can be quite critical of Sheedy, but he does make the back line tick. And I think I would love to see Lloyd do it again, but I'm not convinced that you can do it again because I don't know whether the Stormers would allow it. But I think he just gives an option off the bench. I think if they're both fit, I'd have him on the bench. And if it's just not working, if Sheedy's hamstring is not in the place it should be, which suggests it's like attached to his earlobe or something. If it's not, what a terrible injury. But if it's, if he's struggling, because if it's hamstring as well, it could affect his goal kicking or other things. So I would go with Sheedy. It's a little bit more conservative, yes, but he can. I genuinely think he's been excellent this season. So yeah, that's where I go. I guess if they're both not fit, you move Thomas in one.
Yeah.
And you put Steph Emmanuel or something at 12, which would be good fun to see. But
yeah, I would have thought. Yeah, I think the Harry Wild thing is unlikely to unlikely to turn up. But yeah,
Harry Wild is going to take Cardiff to the URC crown.
Yeah.
Get him straight in the Wales squad. I think that'll be a question with between Lloyd and Sheedy that would genuinely split the supporter base. I think I know like I think this pod's relatively pro Sheedy, but there was one comment I think after the last one which was saying I fundamentally disagree with the Sheedy fanboys. Lloyd is way better. So it is becoming a bit sort of early 2000s
I would like to
Twilight.
counter Simon though with one thing. We're saying that Lloyd can't do that again. I went. He managed it against us for a couple of seasons where he seemed to just do the same performance every time. I just
those
seem
are
to
seasons
infuriately get
apart.
under all the tackles.
Yeah, those are seasons apart, not consecutive games.
So Sheedy, and then obviously Lloyd if Sheedy doesn't make it centers, then well, I think the question here, Harley, I think there was another unanimous decision of who the outside centre would be if everybody's fit. Everybody just said Millard and comes
Yeah.
back in if he's fit. Obviously Ben Thomas back into 12 then. The question then is if Millard isn't fit, does Adams go in there, who we assume is going to be available after head knock, but obviously he's had a few concussions now, so there might be a question mark over him. Do we go Jennings Thomas again?
For those of you not watching,
Harley's being sick.
Harley's just grabbed a bucket to be sick at the thought of Adams at 13.
It upsets me every time. I just can't do it. And every time he watches it, it just proves it's not an experiment worth continuing. Beetham has been far better and showed far more promise as the 13. I know we've talked about him sticking on the wing, but I think that if you want to, someone who's a bit more bulky and a bit more like a winger, then having Jennings, Ben Thomas go with that. Although, one thing is, despite the fact that, we've sort of denigrated Jennings a bit, but him and Thomas actually is starting to work as a partnership, which is weird. It shouldn't work, but it is starting to get there. I do worry that we do lack a little bit of punch in midfield, but if we can get around teams, then great. But my bigger issue is, frankly, like I do think we need that bulk. I think defensively, Ben Thomas is starting to get the knack of it a bit, but Stormers didn't challenge him last time out. I think with Ruinel in there, that will change. He's a far better player than the person they had at 13 last time out. So, I said I'm fingers crossed Harry Millard's fit, and I want yet another international class outside centre wearing his pajamas.
Has Jennings gone?
Well, he's leaving in the summer. He's still a player.
Yeah, but I didn't. I guess we haven't seen a squad that goes out because it's for this. But I don't know. I just got the impression that he was finished.
No, I think they're contracted until the official end of the season, which is after the final, which is the issue you have with the English players in the Wales squad. Even if their teams aren't playing in the final, they won't be available for the Barbars game because they're still technically in the Premiership season.
I wasn't 100% sure. He just seemed to. Maybe I was reading something into something else, but yeah.
Just interestingly on that point, Harley, about punching midfield, I guess that's why Basham's so important as well, because he's got the ability to get into that. But probably Lawrence hasn't quite got that speed around the park, but Basham basically in those situations can play like a crash ball 12 in terms of his footwork as well. So I guess it's weird thinking you're balancing your centre selection with your number 8. I don't know whether that's a thing or not. But
that's basically the whole reason why World Rugby switched to that as a whole. Switch to that crash ball 12 was because packs were starting to get balanced and the back rows weren't punching as big a hole, so they found another way to find a bigger player to punch that hole. I mean, that's
the selection at 13 does directly impact the wing and fullback conversation as well, though, because if it is Ben Thomas at 13, then what do you do with Beetham at 14? And Adams, if he is fit, does he come in for Bowen? Bowen had a stormer, probably would suit out there. You don't want to drop Beetham because Beetham's been playing really well. So does that mean you move him to fullback? But again, Cam's been playing really well. So how do you find that balance around those basically back four So 11, 13, 14, 15.
Well,
It's
Tony, fortunately, it's your turn to pick a, a position. And a wing was a position I put out on socials as well. And just to not help you at all, suggestions we had were Bowen and Beetham, Adams and Bowen, and Adams and Beetham. So they've put all of the combinations together across
did
one of
anyone
these.
say Adams and Millard or anything like that?
No, we didn't. We didn't get quite that far left field, but
Yes.
yeah, there's certainly not a consensus here in terms of what the best wing pairing is, even sort of irrespective of 13 a little bit. But if let's say Millard is fit and it's Thomas and Millard 12 and 13, what would your back three there? I think it's sort of three of four really, isn't it, between Bowen, Beetham, Adams, and Winnett? What would your back three be?
Um, I would go Adams in the 11, Beetham in the 14, and Winnett in the 15. And I would have Bowen maybe on the bench, depending on the split.
I mean, it's a massively controversial call either way because I think you're either dropping a guy who just won three awards of official awards last week, you're dropping a Test Lion, or you're dropping Beetham, arguably our most informed player at the moment. So yeah, I mean, this is the real clincher. I'll take voting around. Simon, what would your pairing be?
Bowen,
Or back
Adams, and
three?
Beetham at fullback.
Okay,
I just
Harley.
think physically it will be just as a last line of defence, and a
Yeah.
big boot from fullback. I think will be useful for just clearing our lines. And I just think the thing about Bowen, for me, he is a game breaker, and nobody else could have. None of our wingers, maybe Stevens, could have scored that try that he scored against the Stormers. He's still got a lot of work to do, and we all want to see a big South African prop flailing, diving, and waving his arms in the air trying to stop. But nobody could have scored that try, even after great work by Ben Thomas. He's the only winger we've got. Everyone else swerves inside and takes the contact and tries to recycle. I just think it comes back to kind of going out on your shield. If you don't pick him, you are a little bit more defensive. You are a little bit more like, right, we're going to be a bit more workmanlike. But so I just, now's the time. If you don't pick him now, then is he always going to be second fiddle in the bigger games? Whereas he shows consistently, even under the high ball, he can, whether it's disrupting their ball or taking ours, he can produce something. You've got to worry the opposition.
Harley.
So I'm going to be really helpful now.
No, don't do the other one.
You and
For me, I'm leaving
Stevens.
Adams out.
Well-
I'm leaving Adams out.
Grading.
I just think that back three works so well against the Storm. It seems to balance quite well. Their high ball work was excellent. And I can't. I said the only thing I could make, I just can't drop any of them for Adams. The only thing I can, the only way I could feel about appeasing all four is if Millard isn't fit and you move Beetham in. Like that's the only for me. That's the only way you probably satisfy having all four of them. I just think but I think as Sam said, it's the time to don your shield. It's time to get, it's to have the players who are going to try and win the game, not try not to lose.
I've changed my mind. I want Bowen, Beetham, Winnett.
That's helpful. That's good I don't have to make a final call. I do have bad news for you, Harley, that if all four are playing, it is going to be Adams at 13 and Beetham. Yeah, I mean that's a really tough choice to leave one. It's the same as like the back row, isn't it? Where like we're not going to pick Adams, who we're picking in Wales squads at the moment, same as we're not picking Mann, who's definitely in Wales squads at the moment, which is like a bizarre state of affairs. But it's also like totally understandable at the moment as well. So I don't know, Tony, is there like if you do end up with Jennings and Thomas at 12 and 13 still. Is it still the same, keeping Beetham, Bowen and Winnett there? Or is there a temptation to put Adams in there then?
No,
No, that's fine.
I'm done with it now.
You've made your call and you're sticking to it.
Yeah.
Good stuff, right. Bench then. So I think if we take Man as fit at the moment, then I guess we're putting Evan Lloyd as the replacement hooker then. I think probably most people would have that. Tony, question mark over Hughes?
Um, I like what Hughes has done the last few games. But yeah, I think Lloyd is probably the better option coming off the bench.
So we've got Lloyd, Southworth,
Harsh on him, but yeah.
Sebastian. Yeah, it is harsh on Hughes, that's fair. Lloyd, Southworth, Sebastian. Harley, I know you like the two second row option. If it is a 6-2, which if everybody's fit, probably feels like it will be a 6-2. Are you making the case for McNally and Teddy to start, and then Thornton and not both on the bench?
I mean, I think it's definitely a route you should. Personally, I think it's the one that I think 6-2 works best on. Like I feel like South Africa built their whole bomb squad idea around having a full tight five replacement, which just allows to keep grinding, which I think for us would be important in just keeping parity with the Stormers because they are going to bring hefty blokes off the bench. There is a lot to be said though, because then you're leaving out either Alan Lawrence or Alex Mann, and that again feels like a really harsh call on the other one. Like one of them is being the club Mr. Dependable, the other one is just bastard incarnate. Um, I say I'm tending more towards that, and maybe going for using Not as that six cover, which would then for me tend possibly more towards Alex Mann, which is about the harshest I could ever be to Alan Lawrence, who is been one of our best players. But I feel like he offers a little bit more that Not doesn't. So I feel like Alan Lawrence or Not for me. I wouldn't have both.
Do you think
Simon?
as Man hasn't played for so long, and as you said, Tony's probably raring to go, that there's a risk with him being on the bench that he kind of comes on and does
Yeah,
something?
I feel like it's going to be one of those decisions that will generate a red card either against Alex Mann or for Alex Mann. I feel like it's one of those. There is no in between. It'll either be a stroke of genius or the worst decision ever.
So just looking at the Stormers line out steals and stuff. So line out one, Andre Hugo Venter has won like 145 of them, which seems like a ridiculously high number. Maybe they only throw to him. But from a stealing perspective, Marcel Theanusen, I probably mispronounced that, so apologies, has got 7 steals, which seems like the most for them. And he was on their bench. So if they stick with a similar sort of bench as last week, having a second row that comes off, or having those 2 second rows that can secure line-up ball in the last 25 minutes against someone who's going to be targeting trying to win that ball off us.
You also have
Seems
Alex
like,
Mann as an option as well, who's also,
yeah,
I'd say, the
yeah,
better line-out option of the two.
yeah.
You have been fooled by a stat there though, Tony, that the
Have
lineouts
I?
one is not the second row. That's the hooker.
Oh, is it?
But yeah, I don't know why they do that. I fell foul of it multiple times as well, thinking, bloody hell, he
uh,
jumps a lot, and it's just the amount of times the hooker's thrown into the line out rather than
Oh
somebody.
yeah, I should look down because Liam Belcher's third, which is absolutely baffling
Well,
that
he's won the
Liam
third
Belcher is
most
third.
line-outs
Yeah, 128.
A
out of,
reflection more
what,
minutes played.
400?
Yeah, he's just been on the pitch a lot. So,
Yeah, but anyway,
um,
steals from a steals perspective, they obviously target that quite a lot. So
I'm happy with that. So we've got Lloyd, Southworth, Sebastian, Thornton, Knott, and Mann as our 6 forwards. Which, yeah, I mean, I suppose quarterfinal rugby, there's always going to be people left out who should be in there. But yeah, it's certainly a good option. Then we've got Bevan as our replacement scrum half, and then Simon. I guess it's if we're picking Bowen, Beetham, and Winnett to start, it probably comes down to Johan Lloyd and Josh Adams as your outside backs then on the bench. I suppose cover wise, you could make the case for either of them. I think there's plenty of if Lloyd's there, then he covers pretty much every position. Fine, to be fair, but if Adams is there, it doesn't we've got Ben Thomas who can play 10 in an emergency, and you can maybe move Beetham into 12 then and bring Adams on. It's a bit more reshuffling, but I don't think there's any positional issues there. It's more about who do we think makes the best impact, I guess, off the bench out of those two.
Yeah, and I think off the bench it's Lloyd. It just off the bench against Glasgow, he broke the game up. Was prepared to go. He'll be feeling confident if he's fit and able. After the way he played, I think he would just, if we need to go for it, he offers more versatility. Even sticking him on the wing, he's played on the wing for us, than Adams does, and also he could come in at 10 or 12, and be that creative player that. Adams is a great finisher, and I think he's in a bit of form as well. Before he got injured, he was getting back in the tries, but I just think you can't have him on the bench. It's too limiting. I think Lloyd, it has to be Bevan and Lloyd.
If Sheedy's not fit then and Lloyd starts, is it Steph Emanuel?
Yeah, I suppose Adams is the obvious one. You just say it is Adams, but I mean, you could certainly make a case for Emmanuel coming on and changing the game. I think that's going to be one where we would say Emmanuel on the pod, but Van Zyl will almost certainly go with Adams just as a bit safer.
He goes 7-1 instead.
Well, he could go 7. You could also say Jennings to be really, really super safe if Thomas and Millard both make it. But yeah,
I mean, to be fair, that final kind of cameo by Emmanuel, where he carried the Stormers player out into touch, and obviously thought he'd won the game there on his own, judging by the celebration. It just shows what potential there is, to do that at that point in the game where the guy was heading towards the line, not only to make the tackle but make a dominant tackle and then put him out into touch. It promises a lot for next season. And it's important that we do see him there a bit more regularly next season. Although saying that Ben Thomas has been outstanding, but I think we need to bring him into the URC games as well. But this isn't the one to give it to him.
Plenty of minutes to come for him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right, I shall try and read this team out then in the most straightforward way possible. Apologies if you don't follow it. I'll put a graphic out on social media or something, which will probably be equally.
Make a flowchart.
Yeah, it's going to be a full PowerPoint presentation breaking it down position by position. But
Visio.
We've gone for from 1 to 123, Rhys Barrett, Liam Belcher, Kieran Azarati, Josh McNally, Teddy Williams if he's fit, Rory Thornton if not, and a back row of James Botham, Dan Thomas and Tame Basham. Johan Mulder at 9, Callum Sheedy if he's fit, otherwise Johan Lloyd at 10. A centre partnership then of Ben Thomas and Harry Millard with Jennings and Thomas as a backup. Bowen, Beetham and Winnett stay as the back three. We've got Evan Lloyd, Danny Southworth and Javan Sebastian as your replacement front row. Rory Thornton, George Knott and Alex Mann as the loose forwards, with Alan Lawrence coming in if Thornton has to go up to the starting team. Ellis Bevan as your replacement scrum half, and then Johan Lloyd in the 23 jersey. Otherwise, we would say Emmanuel, but probably be Josh Adams if Johan Lloyd has to start. I think that was clear enough.
You also missed the scenario of if Sheedy and Johan Lloyd were injured, where we've got Thomas at 10, Steph at 12 then, and Jennings
at 12. I don't know. Yeah, we're just praying that's not happening, essentially. And this is when the team selection comes out and at least 3 new injuries have appeared, and it's all not worthwhile anyway. But no, I think I tell you, I think a few weeks ago, if maybe somebody had said to a Cardiff fan, look, you might end up in a quarter-final with Rory Jennings and Ben Thomas playing a centre away at Stormers, I think the natural reaction would have been, oh my word, that is going to be a car crash. But it's at a point now where any of those players, I think, have got form and have probably got the trust of the supporters to go out and do a job. Right, any more on the Stormers, on anything? No, all good. That's us for this week then. As I mentioned, there is the fan zone down at the Arms Park, so do get down there if you haven't made it to South Africa. I think there'll be a decent crowd, especially if the weather's quite nice, and they're putting a big screen up outside the clubhouse, so there'll be plenty of room for people to stand and watch it there. They're getting some food trucks in. Sorry, go on, Tony.
I'll be there, so if you vehemently disagree with any of my takes, I'm happy to have a conversation and have you change my mind as easily as these guys change mine. So.
I'm going to go down and disagree with you, Tony.
Oh, no, you're not.
Just ignore you.
Good stuff. Simon, thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, Harley.
Cheers.
Cheers, Tony.
Allez les bleus!
We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll have a few more pods to go, but certainly be picking the bones out of the Stormers game and looking ahead to what's to come. But until then, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.